Welcome back to Fishing Without Bait, a lifetime without definitive expectations. And as promised, we're going to continue our conversation with our delightful guest, Jenni Crumpton Ross. So, if you're a 40-year production, we talked earlier before the show about being a 20-year overnight success. Could you say a little bit more about that in your life?
Oh, yeah, it's just been such a process, and laden with what felt like so many failures, or starts and stops, dead ends, desires for one thing, but getting something else, or not being able to break through certain likely self-imposed barriers. I think, the way I ended up living was much like you were talking about earlier, which was realizing that I can't know everything. I can't know why something happened and something else didn't happen. Um, there's you were saying some things about manifestation earlier, and that's become so popularized. And watching other people really just do anything to get what they wanted, whether that was a career position or money or relationships or whatever the things may be. And feeling that deep pain um, at certain points in life of being disappointed that things didn't turn out a certain way, or oh, well, I didn't get this in my career, or this never happened. Oh, I worked so hard for that. And it did, eventually just occur to me that that's just not what it's about at all. Um, and I would say the pandemic did this a little bit for everybody because everybody's life sort of stopped on so many different levels, whether it was people who were interested in dating at the time or trying to meet someone and you couldn't do that for a year or whatever it was, or people who were looking to move up in their careers, but everything was stalled, or so many people lost jobs. I think it was interesting that we all went through this exercise of seeing that you can either drive yourself to a point of insanity, experiencing the pain of unrequited desires, or you can start to view it as, hey, it's actually not really what I'm here for. I'm here to expand and grow and explore as a human being. And if that means certain failures or things that don't work out right, or, it taking 20 years to get to find your true purpose, that it is about that journey. And having that dark night of the soul, whether you have one big one of those that lasts a long time, or you have several short stints of dark night of the soul, that there is such a deeper purpose to how that transforms you and what your expectations of your life are. And that deeper joy that you were referring to earlier of actually just living through these scenarios, um, which, teaches you so much. Um, that's what I've found over my, and I don't think I've reached success now either. I started to measure success by, how much joy am I feeling? We all have that voice in our head of our higher self or our authentic self, as you were calling it. And we get little there's the negative talk, and then there's occasionally we get this beautiful, we catch a comment from our higher self. And mine lately has been saying, enjoy your life, enjoy your life, enjoy your life. And I find, it's so easy to get stressed out, to look at what's not happening right, what's not going right, all the obstacles, all the difficulties in parenting and relationships and work, etc. And I'm trying to take that voice to heart, and that to me is what success is um, learning to just enjoy my life.
Life's right in front of you. It's interesting because that's Buddhists describe depression as the long night of a dark soul.
Mm,
Everything's a matter of perspective, Jenny. It's the way,
mm,
just a matter of turning a phrase. You can get up in the morning and say, "Oh, another day," or you can get up and look outside and say, "Oh, another day."
yeah,
It really depends on how you look at things. It's a matter of perspective, and you can change that perspective anytime you choose. I people on this podcast have heard this thousands of times, but I do a when I speak at rehabs, it's interactive, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll have 4 or 5 people come up and stand in front of me, and I'll say, "Pretend I'm a smiling horse," and they laugh, but they generally I'm accommodating. I'll say, "Okay, you're a smiling horse," and I'll have them go around behind me, and then I'll bend over and I'll say, "Now what do you see?" And I get some really colorful comments then. But however, then I'll ask them. I'll say, "Here's the point to this: did the horse move or did you move?" And then they get it. I'll say, "Okay, people go through their lives trying to manipulate people, places, things, and situations to be exactly the way that they think that they should be. Where the horse doesn't move, only you can move." So generally, what I'll tell people when they're having a bad day, or they look rough, I'll say, "Which end of the horse are you looking at? The horse has 2 ends. Which one do you choose to look at?"
I love that. That's great.
So, uh, the long night of a dark soul, all of these things. So, could you tell us a little more about Kula for Karma?
Sure. So Kula for karma. So Kula means community in Sanskrit. Karma means service to others. And Kula for Karma was actually founded by 2 women in New Jersey in 2007 um, in recovery. And they had used mindfulness and yoga, breath, awareness, movement on their healing journeys. And they looked around their neighborhood in a very grassroots way, noticing that there were people around them who could also benefit from this. This was 2007, and there wasn't as much. They were really kind of pioneers in saying, okay, people need to know about these tools in a way that benefits people who can't just pay to go to a yoga class at a fancy yoga studio, or can't just, you know, aren't exposed to the tools and the practices of mindfulness. So, really looking at people and communities who um, would really benefit from that, but didn't have access to it. So, actually, the first program that Jerry, the founder, did was she called up New Jersey's child and family services, and said, I think this would help the kids. And they started their first program in group homes for kids who were removed from their homes and their families due to abuse or alcoholism or drug use or sexual abuse. And it was just stunning how the kids gravitated to the practices and gravitated to having these adults in their life who came every week and did this with them. And the kids really responded to that feeling of calm, the regulation of the nervous system, learning to regulate their emotions and understand how they were living in their bodies and manifesting as behaviors or symptoms or, dysregulated emotions. And it went from there. They started programs in addiction recovery and treatment centers, juvenile detention centers, prisons, hospitals, schools, crisis centers, domestic violence shelters. And Kula has really grown from this local grassroots effort into this national movement. I call it a movement for mindfulness based mental health care that is perfectly poised to help people in marginalized and underserved communities in this post pandemic world that we're living in, where we've all had this sort of realization during the isolation and stress of COVID-19 about how important our mental health is. That our system just doesn't always accommodate everybody if you don't have insurance, or if insurance will only give you five, visits with your therapist, or, medications aren't covered, or this or that. And just really looking for a way to provide access of an inclusive nature to a piece of that holistic thing that is mental health care. And we believe that mindfulness really can function as a sustainable part of mental health care. And so we strive, to open programs that are helping people, children, teens, and adults who are struggling with trauma, addiction, and mental health conditions, and really bringing it to where they are. So we go into the schools, we go into the addiction recovery centers, etc. I just think this is a wonderful time to be doing this. There's so much need. I really just advocate for mindfulness as an actual part of our mental health system.
Well, good luck with that. As most people, at least in Pennsylvania, they teach to the test because that's how they fund places. They're really not interested in forming citizens. What they're interested is in forming good employees.
Mm-hmm.
So
So it's definitely, it's a movement that I think has met its time, and it's going to be a big uphill, rolling the boulder up the hill.
that's okay. Well, the myth of Sisyphus, but unfortunately, the education system is based on a concept called fixed purposefulness, and sometimes there's a concept called divergent thinking. I'll just briefly talk about it for a moment because I think it's really important. So they would take a group of 5 or 6 year old children, and they would give them a paper clip, or they'd give them a shoe, and they'd tell them, think of how many uses you could make of this. Well, divergent thinking is thinking of over 200 uses for them, and most 98% of 5 or 6 year old could do that. They visited these same children when they were 10. It went down to 35%. They tested these same children when they were 15, and it went to 10%. 98% of adults can only have 2% of divergent thinking. They can do 2% of two. And we've just completely lost our way in teaching people how to think. Fixed purposefulness is answering questions, not thinking. So what you're telling me is you're teaching them to expand their minds and to learn how to think.
Yeah. Yeah. Critical thinking, I think, is a part of mindfulness as much as, I've never connected those two. But I think when you put it that way, in the context of that example, it is something that helps us to begin to think more critically and in more multifaceted ways.
It's exploring possibilities.
Yeah.
So you have a team of individuals that are trained, and where do they go and how do they get there?
Yeah, so we have teachers around the country. They're all registered yoga teachers, and all, certified in mindfulness. And many of them are also licensed social workers, psychologists, um, have had psychiatric training. And then we also take them through a specific training on yoga and mindfulness for trauma, addiction, and mental health. So they're often trained from many perspectives and many experiences in their lives. And we have a network of teachers across the country, and they go into our sites. So, for instance, one of our big clients is Advanced Recovery Systems, and we have teachers in the locations who we have worked with and vetted and trained, and they go in and lead the classes once a week or more. Sometimes it's just for men, sometimes it's just for women, sometimes it's mixed. But we work with the sites to, come up with a plan for what their particular population needs. And we pride ourselves on sort of curating it in that way and going into the site and working with the folks.
That sounds like a noble effort. What I generally suggest to people is I want you to keep your head in the clouds, but I said, here's the suck part of life. I want you to keep your feet on the ground. So I generally, when some people come up with me with all these fantastic, wonderful ideas, I'll say, that sounds super, but how do you put gas in your car? So how do you folks put gas in your car?
Well, we do a lot of fundraising. Steve Madden is our biggest funder. Steve Madden, the shoe guy, the shoe mogul,
Okay.
who is just a wonderful soul, and really believes in our programs, particularly our addiction recovery, and our programs in prisons, where he has seen, that people come out with no place to go and no work. And so we also do programs in work training, working to prevent prison recidivism in combination with other nonprofits who are providing different services. So a lot of times we dovetail with what another nonprofit is doing, and we either raise funds together, or to pay our teachers, and we apply for grants, and then some sites are large corporations or hospitals, and they have budgets, to pay us to pay our teachers and train our teachers and create the infrastructure that we use.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it comes from several different directions.
So how would a person get in touch with Kula for Karma?
Well, you can go to kulaforkarma.org. That's KULAFORKARMA.org. And you'll find ways to contact us via email. We're also on social media at Kula for Karma. We're doing a Moves for Mental Health campaign for May for Mental Health Awareness Month. And some of our advisory board members who, everyone on Kula's staff, as well as our board and advisory board, have all utilized these same practices in their own healing journeys from whatever mental health conditions they have. And so we like to, talk a lot about how we're led by the people we serve. We are the people we serve. And so we really want to highlight that this May for Mental Health Awareness Month by doing this Moves for Mental Health campaign where we're all doing different dance moves and posting videos.
Oh, wow.
And so that's really fun. I would invite anybody to, find us on any social media platform at Kula for Karma and post your own video doing your own dance moves.
I'm not too sure whether you'd want Mike and I to do that.
I don't know. I bet you're pretty good.
Well, sure. I'm you have a fine, you're a kind individual. So you do have a brick and mortar headquarters?
No, no. So that's another way that we operate to keep overhead really low. We don't have an office. We all work from home. And our teachers, of course, are spread throughout the country. And we use Zoom a lot.
Okay.
But yeah, so we don't have a brick and mortar, but we are out there and we would love to hear from you.
How How do you recruit people?
Yeah, so, a lot of that word of mouth goes a really long way. Having a network just of people that we're in connection with or have built relationships over the years. We also tend to go to yoga studios in different towns and cities where we see that we're starting to build a new program. We go to yoga teacher trainings, and we really rely on just that good old fashioned word of mouth about, who's out there, who's doing this type of work, and who can we bring on board to teach at a specific site in a certain city. And we, go through interviews with that person. Of course, as I mentioned, we do trainings with the teachers as we recruit them. And we really work hard to place teachers in sites who the people who are being served are going to identify with that person. So if, for instance, we run a program at a charter school in the Bronx, and we want our teacher to reflect the students and to be able to communicate on that level of mentor and being able to see someone like ourselves. And so we really take a lot of time and care to go through networks to find exactly the right teacher for a specific site and a specific group of people.
Wow, as Dr. Chaudhary would call that, that's a noble effort. People have core emotional concerns, and it sounds like you're addressing them: the need to be listened to, the need to be understood, the need to be respected, the need to be treated as an equal, the freedom to decide, and be given the benefit of the doubt. And it sounds like you're looking for all of those things and trying to really empower people, Jenny.
Yeah, yeah, I think, yeah, that is our goal, and a big part of that, and where I think some of those things happen, is we try to establish a safe space and a safe community. It's never just one person in the class, it's a group of people, whether it's a group of people in recovery or a group of people in juvenile detention, or a group of people at a safe house. And we really work to foster this non-judgmental, empathetic community where people can feel like, "Oh, you know, for an hour here, I can really kind of relax into this space that's being held for me where I can do this work."
That's one of the most difficult challenges that we have, is to help people take a non-judgmental
Mm.
uh, stance. I have tattooed across my chest, "Who am I to judge?" However, I had triple bypass surgery 4 months ago, and
Oh,
when they zipped me back up, they they misaligned it.
oh man.
But I think they had another agenda at the moment. So, Jenny, you're just absolutely delightful. And what we're going to do is we're going to put up all the links for your site so people could. Actually, I have some good yoga instructor friends of mine that I'm going to introduce this concept to them to see if
Yeah,
they'd be interested also.
thank you. Certainly. I really appreciate you.
So, at the end of every podcast, Jenny, what we like to do is we offer a free prescription: fruits, nuts, and vegetables. Unplug your television and take up fishing. And for a truly mindful experience, we suggest that you fish without bait. And do a kindness for another and do a kindness for yourself. Forgive another and forgive yourself. If we're all not God's children, none of us are. Till all are free, none are free. Namaste, my friends.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.